Sykes, the Bottom Line Pharmacy podcast. We've got a great show for you this week, but before we get into the show, if you find this episode valuable, please like, share, and subscribe so we can help more independent pharmacy owners. Also, visit us at pharmacyaccounting.com. If you're overpaying in tax, if you're prepping to start, buy, or sell a pharmacy, or just have a gut feeling that your financials aren't quite right, we have a suite of services for every need your pharmacy is facing. Go to pharmacyaccounting.com and we can help you. Okay, now on to the show.
Seth, obviously, we're seeing that. I'm having clients contact me now, current clients, multiple times a week now. So everybody's starting to finally get on this train of, consulting, basically being compensated for something that you've already been doing anyway.
For years, probably. Right. Exactly. Yes. I mean, the story I always tell about that is we had a store in their first annual enrollment period do over 400 consultations and enroll over 200 patients. And the funny thing is that they're like, yeah, it was kind of a down year for us. And it's like, so you're telling me you do more than that, Norman? It's like, yeah, we've been doing this for a decade. And our patients just are drawn into us. We've just done it as a value add service and wherever influence they could have to kind of directly, not push, but encourage people to go in one plan or the other, because frankly, we know what those reimbursement realities are. They've been doing it for a decade. We're talking about thousands and thousands of these that they've earned $0 from. So that was one of my favorite ones, because it's just like, this is so obvious that everybody should be doing it. There was a lot of that apprehension that you were just talking about, that people thinking, is this compliant? What are the stark implications? What are these concerns? And look, I get all of that. At the end of the day, you're already doing this. Just get paid for it. That's really all we're trying to do. We're not even really asking people to like bleed the lines here, do anything. It's just like, do what you're already doing, but just get paid for it.
Right. And with independent pharmacy, the way it is, obviously with reimbursements down, it can be challenging for many. So anything that you can do, revenue wise to add to the bottom line is a win-win, right? So
I don't even know that it's a win-win. It's like, we're in a survival situation here. No, That doesn't justify like unethical behavior. That's not what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
But you got to go at, we teach a model. And this is something that we talk about all the time on our platform and at the things that we talk about. It's profit per patient. So this idea that we're going from dispensing is our model of profit or generating revenue is through dispensing, is okay. Now let's look at each individual patient that walks through that door as his own little profit center. Okay, what can we do with each one of those patients to drive a revenue stream? Again, not in any manipulative way. That's not the point, but it's like, they're already there. Okay, so can we sell them their insurance? Can we take their OTC card and make high margin on OTC products there? Can we, of course, dispense their medication? Are there other wellness services that we can offer? Are there things like CCMs? These are all things that everybody's thinking about, but for some reason, I feel like most people don't have, I don't know if it's the guts to talk about it, or if had put all the puzzle pieces together and simply say, look, these are little profit generating centers. Use them, okay? And service them. And by doing so, everybody wins. I mean, that's just
And I think it's changed. I mean, people haven't done it in the past. And so there seems to be that there's this weird, I don't know, feeling. I think some people have no issue. Others just speak to me about, there's just this feeling of that maybe there's something not right about it. I think our big disclaimer here would be that with any service in a pharmacy is that patient care is at the forefront.
Of course. Paramount.
You're gonna always, this is paramount. This is what we're doing. Everything you do is, that's the top, priority here.
Right.
So then that doesn't change by offering. You have to remember this is a business, right? And so
the second your doors close, I don't care how high-minded you want to be, your doors are closed. And now those people are forced to go through the pill, folks down the street at the Walmarts, whatever. And not to talk poorly about the chains, but we know why people don't go there. So you got to fight for your patients, your business, your employees, all of the above. I think a lot of those ethical concerns have started to go away, primarily because people have seen other folks do it. Just a quick name drop, but Randy McDonough, who's the president of APHA, his Towncrest group in Iowa, they got 7-9 stores, something like that. Kelly Kent's one of their owners. She's one of our most productive agents that's out there doing all sorts of educational seminars and stuff. It's a total value prop for their patients and for their stores, you know?
Yeah.
So as soon as some of those dominoes started to fall, it seems like in the zeitgeist of pharmacy, people have kind of accepted it now. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and going back to what we mentioned earlier about patient care kind of being the center of all this, it actually is enhancing patient care by offering these additional revenue streams because they want and they need that service anyway. So you're enhancing the care of that patient as opposed to just filling their prescriptions. You're offering them things that they already need to increase their level of care. Yeah.
I think also too, this idea that insurance is simply there in terms of a transactional function. Okay. Either I pay or I'm enrolled in some sort of plan that helps me spread out some of the expense associated with my cost. And look, that's part of what insurance does, but it's so much more robust in 2025. Because if somebody's enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan, for example, which is 61% of new Medicare enrollees enroll in Medicare Advantage plans, this is talking about their comprehensive medical coverage. This is going to cover their doctor visits, their hospital visits, their dental coverage, their hearing. It is a comprehensive thing, right, that is critical to their care, broad writ. Okay, this is like across the board. And so for the pharmacy to just simply think, well, my little sliver of this is only here. Okay, but my what's the word I would want to say? My desire for the pharmacy is them to integrate this into their clinical practices, that understanding, well, if this plan doesn't cover that endocrinologist that they need to really see, and I'm working with that endocrinologist to manage their meds over here, well, having some level of influence on making sure this person's on the right plan, not only is it ethical, I think it's important. You know,
exactly.
It's almost required because what are they going to do? Call Joe Namath on TV or call one of the 1-800 numbers and get some charlatans throwing them on whatever plan they can?
Exactly.
I think my agents are a little bit higher ethical standard than most, to be honest.
Right. Your independent pharmacy normally has pharmacists that are working to know everything, you know, so much about you and what makes sense. It really, that's a great point. So talk to us about ICBN, what you guys can offer. Kind of walk us through an ideal situation if someone is interested in your program.
So the thing that we talked about from the beginning is that this is not a large investment in dollars. It's a large investment in time. Both in order to become what's called a licensed and certified broker/agent. But then the actual implications are now I have to do all these reviews with people, and that's going to take a lot of time too. So it's not a high dollar figure investment. I'm not buying a big piece of equipment or adding a bunch of new staff. It is simply that I'm going to exchange some time for this. Why? Because you have to go through a process. So if I'm, Fred's Pharmacy, I always use Fred's Pharmacy as my example, but I'm Fred's Pharmacy. I'm your standard mom and pop independent community pharmacy. I'm doing $4 million a year gross. It's like, I'm just kind of that model. Okay. I'm probably skewed 50% of my folks are going to be Medicare eligible, Part D in that in that light. So I'm realizing I got to do something because I am not doing well. So they come into us and we say, okay, well, Fred's Pharmacy has to get someone licensed. Does it have to be Fred? Does it have to be Susie? It can be anyone within the pharmacy affiliated with the store. Our preference is someone that has a relationship existing with patients because that's what we're leveraging here is they're already existing. Totally. And so what we want to do is get someone through the licensing process. What's the licensing process? You have to go through a pre-licensing course. It's usually 40 hours worth of pre-licensing kind of education, similar to what maybe a technician goes through for their technician's license. And then they have to take a state exam. We help facilitate both of those processes, right? So we help you get your pre-licensing, schedule your test, okay? Once you pass your test, then there's another series of things that you have to do. People think that's the end of it. It's not. It's kind of the beginning because now I have to go and take one more test. It's a national test called AHIP. It's a federally mandated test for all folks that sell health insurance. Then I have to go and decide which insurance companies am I going to sell. So do I want to sell United, Humana, Aetna, Blue, Cigna? The litany of folks that are out there they could potentially offer. Whichever ones they choose is what we help facilitate contracts for them to get. And then they have to go through a certification process with each one of those insurance companies. So United Healthcare might take a day, 2 days, not 8-hour days. That's not what I'm saying. But in terms of what I have to do, maybe it take a couple of days to get through that certification process. Then Humana, then Aetna. Why do I frame it this way? Well, it's because all in for money, I might spend maybe $800 because there's a pre-licensing course, the state exam, there's some fingerprinting that done. All of that has hard costs. It's not what we charge, it's what the state costs, their charges. Right. So we're maybe less than $1,000 into it in terms of hard costs, but I might be at 60, 70, 80 hours worth of work. And so I don't mean that to be discouraging to anyone, but what we've had in our experience is some folks come in thinking this is just going to be the easy slam dunk. We'll flip a couple of things and then we're off and running. It's like, no, there is some actual time commitment here. And so that's our biggest, I would say, cost to entry is having someone that has the wherewithal, patient relationships, understanding of what we're trying to do, that can get through that process so that now they're ready to perform these consultations with their patients. And so that's the biggest challenge we run into. Every show we go to, every event we're at, everybody says this is a no-brainer. We sign up, we get them going, and then we look at our numbers and go, why are we only getting about 50, 55% of people through the process? It's because it's a daunting process. If I'm a pharmacy owner, the toilet just went out, I got to make payroll, I'm getting audited by Optum. It's like, there's other stuff that's more pressing. So I understand that. But in short, that's kind of the process. And what ICBN's whole platform is designed is that we take you from that pre-licensing status to all the way to what we call RTS, ready to sell status. Mm-hmm. And throughout that whole process, it's the licensing, it's the certifications, it's the appointments with the insurance companies, and then it's the training to then at the end of that whole process, you be able to sit down with the patient and perform a compliant review with them. So our job is to help facilitate the process and then train you as you go along.
Yeah, we talked about that pharmacists have been doing this for years, but I do love the training piece because I think they're not insurance agents per se yet. But maybe there's things to learn there on that piece.
There's so much because most of them
and help the patient. Yeah.
Because most of them are dangerous when they start, and I'll be really. I'll give you a quick instance. One of the first stores that we ever brought into this process, and I won't say their name to embarrass them, but they had been doing version 0.0. They hadn't actually become a licensed broker, but they were still performing this function. Right? They had a patient come in. Patient comes in, does a review. The patient was on a Medicare Advantage plan. They looked at only the one piece, which was their drugs. They dumped it into Medicare.gov, typed it up, said, actually, Mrs. Johnson, if you go to this plan, which was a standalone prescription drug plan, which is very different than a Medicare Advantage plan, it doesn't cover their major medical expenses anymore. They said, if you enroll in that plan, your drugs will be cheaper. Mrs. Johnson says, hey, this is great. She enrolls, and they're off and running. Well, of course, in January, she's diagnosed with cancer. Okay. She now has to start getting treatment. She goes in to get her treatment and she's on original Medicare, Part A and Part B of Medicare only, no supplement, no nothing. Part A and Part B, we're talking about 20% when you're talking about Part B of your out-of-pocket expenses. And she's on a standalone prescription drug plan. And the patient, of course, is freaking out. So we were able to kind of come back in and fix that problem. But it was at that moment that the pharmacy said, we're dangerous when we're doing this. Yeah. We are not educated on what all the idiosyncrasies are between these different plans and what the actual patient income. All we know is this one narrow lane of Part D, but we need to expand that. So in terms of the training, that's really where we try to make them compliant, make them, mainly make them so that what they're providing their patients is
the
valuable,
best,
accurate, all that kind of stuff.
So you brought up an interesting story there. Talk about some of like the compliance, some of like the most common like compliance pitfalls that you see owners make, or just some things that, they get into it, they think it's one way, and then they learn later on that it's this, and just some of those things, if you don't mind highlighting that.
Compliance is that thin red line in between what we're trying to do here, right? Because is this a compliant activity? Of course, if done correctly. But I could say that about almost anything, right? And so the compliance aspects that we try to teach people are what CMS is mandating in terms of marketing, where and how you're able to provide these summaries, HIPAA implications about providing these summaries. So here's the most common pitfalls. We open insurance agency, we get Fred, he's our licensed broker, he's going to do great. And then they start saying, hey, we're going to offer the best plans to all of our patients. They send out a marketing piece to everyone that says, we're offering Fred's Insurance Services so that everybody gets on the best plan. Well, CMS has said for, 15 years, you cannot use the word best in any marketing. Why? Because what's best for you is not best for me. Everybody's circumstances are
Mm-hmm.
unique. But yet they put this non-compliant language in marketing because they're just trying to do the right thing. They really would try to do the best available thing. I believe them, but it's non-compliant. So we actually had a store last year, did not run it through. Well, they ran it through us and we told them not to do what they did. They sent out a letter and of course, ding, 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 ding. One of their patients gets this letter, says, hey, we're offering these evaluations so you can get on the best plan. They took that letter to their existing Medicare broker. That broker sent it up the chain to an insurance company, complained about it, and they were dinged and got slapped on the hand. Now, you're getting slapped on the hand. They're not, perp walking you back. It's like it's not that bad. But the bottom line is it created a headache for them, all because they just didn't follow this silly little compliance thing. So I would say a lot of it is primarily on how they're marketing the service to their patients, and that they're not following some of these very basic compliance standards in the advertising and marketing of the services. The next big thing that I see is mainly the HIPAA implications. And so they'll say, well, I'm Fred of Fred's Pharmacy, and I'm performing a review for Mrs. Johnson. So I'm going to sit down in my PMS. I'm going to pull up her last 6 months. I'm going to print out a list of her scripts, and I'm going to go do her Medicare review. Well, he did the first function as her pharmacist. Now he's doing the next function as her Medicare broker. Yeah. I'm a Medicare broker. I'm not a pharmacist. I don't have patients. I couldn't walk into Fred's Pharmacy and say, hey, give me a list of her scripts. That's clearly not HIPAA compliant, right? And so it's that fine balance of how do we get the pertinent health information that we need from the patients in a way that's compliant so that we can still perform the consultations with all of the needed information, but done so in a compliant manner. Again, something that we train them on, how do you get release forms, permissions, all that kind of stuff. But those are probably the two biggest ones. Marketing things poorly, and then at the point of execution, just walking over to their system and going, all right, Mrs. Johnson, let's talk to you from the counter about what you're on. It's like, no, those are completely non-compliant.
Well, and the marketing piece is interesting because we saw this a lot with the GLP issue where pharmacies were, they were selling the compounded GLPs, but what was happening is they were sending... Yeah, they basically just had like an ad agency or a marketing agency that they would just pay, $500, $1,000 a month. Well, that marketing agency is not doing the due diligence to make sure that the stuff that they're putting out there is compliant. Right. So you'd see a lot of pharmacies get flagged simply because their agency that they're working with doesn't know, that they can't put best inside of their marketing.
I mean, CMS specifically has all these guidelines, all of these things, and then we see what they're advertising on TVs. We see what the call centers are doing, and the pharmacies go, why am I getting dinged because I put the word best, but they got Joe Namath on TV promising everybody the world? It seems like, an imbalance in that. And it totally is an imbalance. And here's the thing. Just like in, when we're fighting the PBMs, you're little mom and pop nothing. We're going to take advantage of you. eHealth, which is the largest of all of the call center places, they're a publicly traded company. They have, lawyers that fight all this stuff. It's easy to come after the little guy, those guys. Not that they get a pass, but it's more headache for CMS to kind of fight with them than it is to come after me. And so you got to be really careful with that, because one of the things, the reason why we do this business is we want to perform a value prop or value addition to our patients. Of course, ensure client or patient care. All of that's kind of baked in. Why do we do it from a financial standpoint? Well, we do it because we earn commissions. That's basically why we do this. So when I earn an upfront commission, I enroll Mrs. Johnson in her plan. I get paid an upfront commission for that. If she stays on that plan, let's say for the next 5 years, I earn something called a renewal. So I don't do anything. I don't have to re-enroll her in a plan. She just stays on the plan. I'm going to earn money basically monthly for maintaining her membership in that plan. Well, if I get enough slaps on the wrist because I use non-compliant language or I do non-compliant sales activities, guess what? They'll pull my contract, and all that effort I built to get, 200 people on United Healthcare yanked away, and I lost all that effort and money. So that's why outside of just the ethics of it, the financial reason is it only is going to make it harder for you to make a long-term business out of this. So our motivation is just do it right, anyways, because of the ethical reasons, but it's only going to behoove you financially long-term as well.
I think that we're getting a lot of questions about too, or comments, and this is over our heads, so you can speak to this. Is okay. So you've done all this. You're moving along. You're starting to sign up for plans, and there's a plethora of plans out there. So are you seeing that? Pharmacies are trying to sign up for everything out there, or do you have to kind of be selective? Like, and what you can offer.
Yeah.
I hate to answer this as it's both or it depends. We really recommend that everybody offers as many plans that they can. We are actually required by CMS now to say in any marketing materials that we say that we do not represent every available plan in your market. And regardless of even if they are contracted to be able to sell every plan in the market, we still have to say we're not. There's some in the weeds reasons why that's the case. But the bottom line is, yeah, many of them will come to me and say, I only want to sell Optum plans because anybody that's on a brand name drug is on any other PBM other than Optum, I lose money. And I tell them, no, then you're not allowed to be part of ICBN, because the reality is that's not always going to be what's right for the patient. And so at a minimum, most of our people are doing somewhere between 5 and 7 insurance carriers in each market. But each market is different, right? Because you go to Miami, that's very different than rural Iowa. Right, there's just a different number of insurance carriers out there. But yeah, I mean, a short answer is, yeah, you need to offer more than just your favorite. Not only because of what it implicates, like, oh, this guy's trying to steer people towards one thing or the other. No, it's just like, of course you have your patients in mind first, and even if you are, I don't want people to lose money, but even if you're in a less advantageous position than you would be on some other plan, it's what's right for the patient. They're going to do what's right. I mean, shoot, they're already losing money as it is, right? And they're dealing with that. So,
yeah,
for sure.
Interesting. So you talked about, Bonnie you talked about offering those as many plans as you can. What are some other best practices that pharmacy owners should follow when they're getting into this?
Yeah, well, the first one we've talked kind of peripherally, but haven't addressed it. You always want to start a separate entity, not for any compliance reasons. Most people come to me and think that that's a compliance issue, and it's really not. The main reason is I'm going to tell you right now, if you're an owner that's going to do this, you're going to do it for a year or two, and then you're not going to want to do it anymore. Not because it's not profitable and not because it's not a great value add for your patients. It's because it's a lot of freaking work, right? And so what many of them do is they will kind of launch the program, find someone else within the pharmacy, be it a tech, manager, brother-in-law, like it doesn't matter. Get them then to be the licensed person and provide those consultations. Well, what happens in that case? Well, the money that's generated from that has to be funneled somewhere. We don't want that funneled to the pharmacy because it's not pharmacy revenue. So as a result, we want it funneled to some other LLC. And then that can be, you guys know this better than I do, can be distributed basically how they choose to distribute that money. But if it was directed to the pharmacy, that distribution would be much more complex. And so our whole reason for setting up that separate entity is that you are going to eventually want to be pushing this money around some other places. And so just out of the gate, start the LLC. What are some other best practices? Most of this job or this part of this job in pharmacy is preparation. So we're approaching the annual enrollment period right now. I just had a store that this is their first year. He came to me. I was on a phone call with him yesterday, 2 days ago. And he says, my goal is to sell 150 enrollments this annual enrollment program. That's a great number. It's really ambitious. That's great. How are you going to do it? And the answer is, it's like nothing,
Nothing.
And it's like, okay, well, how are we going to do that? Well, it's all about preparation. So it's having a marketing plan in place. It's having your team members in place. It's having signage in place. It's having all these little pieces in place so that once we hit this October 1st deadline, annual enrollment starts the 15th of October, but we can actually start talking about plans on October 1st. And so having this entire plan in place that funnels everything towards that kind of October 1st date really is what leads towards success. And so in terms of best practices, it's the preparation that gets you there. In terms of being a Medicare broker, by the time they get done with our training system, which is, we call it Mastering Medicare, it's a series of 9 webinars that they go, as they're going through their licensing and certification process, they also go through this Mastering Medicare process. It's a weekly webinar. We host it. We record it every week. So we have this library of dozens of these. And they can just basically watch that. So at the end of that process of getting licensed and then going through Mastering Medicare, they're 99% of the way there in terms of being able to be a proficient broker. There's all sorts of tools that we integrate into this that are free tools. So like all of the quoting tools, the CRM system, all that stuff is all built into a free tool that they access. So they don't have to think, they don't have to rethink, like, how am I going to store this information, or where is that? How do I search for this? It's all built into one platform. So really the thing is preparing for it and then executing it as we train you to do it. And then after that, everything's stored in one clean spot for you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. That's good stuff.
We haven't talked
No,
about the money. I mean, if you want to, I have no problem talking about the money because I think, look, why are we doing this? Outside of the reasons that we've already discussed, the main reason is financial benefit to it.
Right.
The money's pretty straightforward. In 2026, the money lays out as follows. CMS sets the commission rates that agents are allowed to make. They also set what I'm allowed to make, and we haven't explained that either. Insurance is a pyramid scheme, and I joke about that, but it's a CMS approved pyramid scheme. It really is. And the reason why I say that is because, okay, I sit at the top of the pyramid and my agents sit at the bottom of the pyramid. The difference between a traditional, multi-level marketing situation, I'm not requiring them to go recruit their cousins and their best friends and sell them whatever, right? The bottom line is just what it means is that there's what's called a street level agent, the agent that's dealing with people on the street, okay? And then they're part of some hierarchical organization, which in this case is ICBN, okay? What does that mean? It means that street level agent is, their commissions are set by CMS. CMS says, if you're going to enroll somebody on a Medicare Advantage plan, be it United, Aetna, Cigna, whomever, it doesn't matter. It has to be the same rate so that no one is motivated to sell one plan over the other. A lot of my pharmacies over the years have said to me, oh, well, they only sell that because they make more money. It's like, no, all of the insurance companies by law have to pay the same amount. And going into 2026, that amount is $697 for a new to Medicare. So somebody enrolls in a Medicare Advantage plan their first time. They've never been on a plan before. They're turning 65 or they're just new to Medicare. And you enroll them in their Medicare Advantage plan, it's almost $700. When I started, It was under $300. We've had basically a 5% increase every year since I've been in the business, which has been nice. So $700, okay, is what you earn. And then Mrs. Johnson comes on, and she's on Humana, but we're going to switch her over to United. I earn half of that for what's called the switch. So she's, 72 years old. She's just going one plan to the other. I don't earn the full commission. I earn half, which is called the switch rate, which is basically just half. Let's just call it $350 to keep the math really simple. And then when somebody renews on their plan, meaning I enrolled them on a plan, and then the following January, okay, they're still on that plan, I start to earn what's called a renewal. The renewal is that, in this case, that switch rate, that $350, and it's generally divided by 12, so it's paid out monthly. So if I have 100 members, right now that renewal rate is about $26 a month. So I have 100 members, I'm going to earn $2,600 a month. That's what my renewal commissions are going to be for simply maintaining those people on the plans that they're on. And then, of course, that starts to stack up. So as you get into year 3, 4, 5, 6 of this, and you're doing 50 to 100 enrollments a year, you can see that in 5 years, and I'm earning maybe at that point $30 a month per person. Shoot, I'm making $15,000 a month. That's what the renewal turns into. So that's why it's so beneficial to the stores, is that this is a non-PBM revenue stream. There's no clawbacks associated with that kind of stuff. It is simply money coming in. In fact, the problem that many of our stores run into years 3 and 4 and 5, they're making too much money on this. And I say that kind of jokingly, but they're making too much money in a business that has no overhead. Right. And so they don't, so they have to find
ways. LLCs are just set up to have
money coming in, just money coming in. And so they have to find some creative ways with their accounting partners. And I'm nothing, not ethical, but I'm just saying it's, you're making $250,000 and there's no expenses in that business. How much of that $250,000 do you get to keep? Right. So that's a big part of tax planning.
Now, speaking of that, we are seeing some people try to allocate employees to separate it completely so that they have kind of the payroll, the person that's running that and handling that. So there could be a situation, and maybe that could help with compliance too. It
does. We have a lot of stores that are incorporating kind of an hourly employee into being the broker. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of there not being any monetary benefit to that employee for doing that, simply because of the amount of time and energy it takes to become the licensed broker and to perform these services. So I still like some sort of split to be going from that pot of money back to the employee above what their standard rate is. But that's dictated by each store. Each store comes up with their own. Which number makes sense.
With how, if you're doing that many enrollments, you have that many customers to manage, you're going to need somebody to manage all those relationships anyway.
Which is why I say they're going to do it for a year or two. And once they have what we call a book of business of 300, 400, 500 patients, it's not that the customer service is so demanding, because it's not. You're seeing these people maybe once a month as they're coming in to pick up their script. So any of that kind of lingering customer servicey kind of stuff, you deal with at that point. But 500 people, they're going to have some questions from time to time. You need somebody that can deal with those questions, which is why those renewals are paid to you, because the whole idea is that you're servicing your members and being the frontline person answering those questions.
The marketing piece comes in. This is something I don't understand because I'm not 65 yet. Got a few more years to go. If I was 65 and up, I guess you're looking for, if you understand this, each year you're looking to just see if things have changed and you want to see if there's something that better suits your situation, right? And health-wise, I guess things can change quickly with someone at that age that maybe this plan made sense last year, but this plan makes sense this year. So is that the benefit?
Yes.
Okay.
The challenge for folks that especially are on, we basically teach a concept of option 1 and option 2. Option 1 is a Medicare supplement with a standalone prescription drug plan, and then option 2 is Medicare Advantage plans. Medicare Advantage plans just change every year. Formularies change, coverage change, benefits changes, networks in terms of the doctors that they cover or don't cover. They all change. In fact, this year specifically, partially because of the Inflation Reduction Act and what the outcome of that was in terms of reimbursements for these Medicare Advantage plans, is there's a ton of plans being pulled from markets. So we have a plan in Florida. It's a very popular PPO Medicare Advantage plan. Something like 18,000 members on this plan across the state is getting pulled. Well, what does that mean? It means every single one of those 18,000 people has to make a choice somewhere else. So even if you have them on the right plan, even if they like their plan, the rug can still get pulled out from underneath them. Or like you said, they have a change, they're taking a new med or have a new condition. That's going to have implications on what insurance they're on. So yes,
does the average 65-year-old plus know that this is something they need to look into every year? Have these conversations? Like, are they like, I got to set up my appointment with my pharmacist to talk about this in November?
When they're a member of my agency and they're patients that basically been served by my agents, they know this, because that's basically what we teach them, is that when you choose this route of a Medicare Advantage plan, you're going to have to shop this basically annually to ensure that you're on the right plan, because things just change or plans go away, or like I said, a formulary change can happen. We had the whole change last year. I don't know how close you guys followed this, but we used to have the donut hole. Now the donut hole's gone away. We have a maximum amount of pocket of $2,000. That had huge implications, because so many plans that never had deductibles all of a sudden had huge $650 deductibles. And so I could have been on a plan for a decade that worked amazing for me. Just because of that one change now doesn't work for me. So it is, unfortunately, that's part of the opportunity and the downside, is that every year there's an opportunity to meet a lot more people. But then there's also what we call a lot of defense that you have to play, that you bring people in, you've serviced them, and I'm probably going to have to service them next year too, or at least within the next couple of years, because their plan is going to change. And the same thing is on the Part D side. If they're only on a Part D plan, premiums for Part D plans are, we haven't got the number yet for 2026, but they're creeping up towards $100. Is their average monthly premium is $100. 3 years ago, the average monthly premium was like $26. And so even those things are things that people just going to have to start shopping and being more on top of.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Seth, I guess we'll go ahead
and, great info.
That's really great info.
Oh man.
Really helpful. Is there anything that, you want to give to our listeners out there? Obviously if you're interested in opening your own, insurance agency, you can reach out to Seth. You can go to I think it's myicbn.com. To go check them out, learn more about them. There's going to be information in the show notes you can click on and everything. But Seth, anything else you want to leave with our listeners?
The bottom line in all of this is that you have spent potentially decades or generational investment in building a patient base. And maybe that was built on the concept that just doesn't exist anymore. And my view on that is, we used to be selling widgets, and our goal was to sell a widget at a higher margin than we bought the widget. And that just isn't the case anymore. And everybody kind of knows that, but and we're starting to see more adopting of different strategies to overcome these difficulties in terms of the reimbursements and the PBMs. But I can't think of a solution that is more affordable in terms of dollar figures. We're talking about less than $1,000 investment, and has more immediate impact for patients and then your bottom line in terms of a new revenue stream, then this. Now, I'm biased. Take it with a grain of salt. I understand that. Right. But if I want to do a closed door shop and start servicing an assisted living facility, God bless, I really want you to do that. But what's your equipment upfront investment in order to get that stuff in place? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay. On my end, I'm talking about less than $1,000, some time, and then basically every person that you have in your store that is Medicare eligible is going to benefit from this service. So it's the ubiquity of it. It's the need for it that's just universally applicable. And then, of course, it generates a ton of money. And so more than anything, I hope people understand that this isn't something that's done on the periphery now. It's almost a requirement. I almost think patients are coming to expect this. And if you had any questions about compliance or anything like that, all that's gone. We just teach you the path to walk in terms of the compliance piece of this. Your patients are going to be grateful for it. I can't tell you how many of my agents say, I can't believe how many people cry at the end of our consultations. It's like, why? It's like, because I've had this question for 7 years. I didn't know who I could ask about it. And now somebody that I've had a relationship with for maybe 20 years has sit down and taken the time to explain this to me. So I just encourage everybody, if you haven't considered it, consider it. ICBN, we're called Independent Community Broker Network for a reason. We only deal with independent community pharmacies. That's the only group of agents that we work with. We're in 43 states across the country at this point. So, I have a hard time feeling that if you need some help walking through this process, there's anybody better out there to do it. Again, take that with a grain of sand and know that I'm biased because I think we're pretty dynamite at what we do. But I appreciate the platform, guys, and what you guys are doing. It's amazing.
Thank you.
And so, yeah.
We appreciate you
Lots
coming
of info.
on.
This is definitely a hot topic. These are the things that we're hearing at all the trade shows this summer. Everybody's jumping on this. It's definitely a way to another revenue stream for independent pharmacy. Again, something you're already doing.
Yeah.
So,
one thing I feel remiss if I didn't bring this up. If you missed the window, you're not ready to go for annual enrollment period this year, we do have something called open enrollment, which is the first 3 months of next year, of every year. Basically, you have the first 3 months for an open enrollment period. It's only applicable for Medicare Advantage members. So it's only folks that are on Medicare Advantage plans, but they do have an enrollment period where they can make a switch at the beginning of the year. So if you've been hesitant, haven't pulled the trigger and thinking, I'm going to miss this season. Yeah, you are going to miss this season, but you can still get ready for a January 1 date and help all those people.
Never too late to start for next year.
100%.
Absolutely.
So anyways,
Thank you
guys
Seth.
are the best. Appreciate it. Yeah, it was wonderful.
So much good information. We
Thanks,
appreciate
Seth.
it.